you what the Lord has done. So many reasons to lift up Jesus.
This is Senior Pastor Jamaal Bernard from the Christian Culture Center, and I want to welcome you to today's message. Wherever you're listening from, at home, in the car, or on the move, I believe this message is going to challenge, inspire, and help you grow. Now let's get into today's message. So I went down a rabbit hole this week. It was not a fun rabbit hole. It was an annoying rabbit hole. And I'll explain to you. Wait, let me back up. Let me back up. First of all, thank you for those who came out to support yesterday's event with the gang awareness. It was a lot of information. It was really, really good. It was needed, especially one of the guys said, one of the problems with the kids is that the parents aren't nosy enough. You know, when we were growing up, you ain't have no private space. This is my room. You know, you better not slam my door. Don't close my door. You know, those are my drawers. That's my bed. I'm letting you borrow it. You know, we didn't have that, you know. And he said one of the things that helped. One of the things they said was that the parents aren't nosy enough. Get into your kids' business. Observe them. Make them a study. One of the things my dad said, if you ever want to be good at it, make it a study. And too often, a lot of us haven't made parenting a study. And we have fallen short of some of the things to respond to our kids and stuff like that. So that's thank you for that. Thank you for coming out. Happy birthday to all the March babies. So I ran down a rabbit hole, and I'm trying to, my prayer is that this is coherent and concise and presented in order, because I made the mistake of taking in a lot of information. And when you hear a lot of information, and especially if it's good information, you want to share all that information. So I went through the process of typing and erasing and typing, and this is where I landed. And we're going to talk about the mind. And why? Because it takes courage to admit the need to change the way you think. I'll say it again. It takes courage to admit the need to change the way you think. And man, was that difficult for me, because if when you have to face that question, the next question is my thinking wrong? Am I not thinking correctly? Why? Because if you're like me, I like to be right. See, thank you. I got some support over there. I'm not the only one. If you don't, come on, everybody likes to be right. But if you like to be right, you being right means that you have the right type of thinking. And if you were wrong, then that means that your thinking is wrong. So it takes courage to admit when you're wrong, and it takes courage to admit that you need to change the way you think. Say to your neighbor, say, neighbor, don't be scared. And the reason why this is so big for me is because in order for us to move to the next level, we have to be willing to change the way we think. In order for us to grow, a part of the growing process is changing the way we think. So just because we need to change the way we think doesn't mean that the way we're thinking is wrong. So you're thinking at one level is good, but your thinking at the next level has to be better. See, because psychologists says that they acknowledge the significant influence of the mind on behavior, emotions, and overall well-being. So the mind has significant influences over the behavior, the emotions, and overall well-being. Psychologist says concepts like cognitive process, mindset, and the placebo effect highlights the mind's power in shaping experiences and outcome. Positive thinking and visualization are often explored for their potential impact on mental health and performance. And once again, like I said, I was going down some rabbit holes, and I came across this whole idea of, sorry, my daughter is calling me. My 7-year-old, the boss. Yes. So, Dr. Brown, you're not going to listen to me anymore? So I came across this study, and a part of this study was this study that they did on World War II. And in World War II, they used to give morphine to the injured soldiers for a couple of reasons. One, for the pain, and two, for the shock. Right? Because if they go into shock, it puts their body in a place where they have a lower rate of being able to respond back from the injury. And what happened was they didn't get a shipment of medical supplies quick enough. They started running out of morphine. And when they started running out of morphine, the nurse came to him, and they give credit to this one individual. I forget his name. I read a bunch of names. Don't judge me. If you want to read about it, Google it. And the nurse goes, well, just give him some saline solution. And as they went through the process of giving them saline solution, the soldiers that received the saline solutions had almost the same amount of response, a high rate of response compared to the ones who received morphine. These individuals said that they didn't feel any pain anymore, and all it was saline. These individuals said, I kind of feel much better, but all it was saline. So what they did was they explored this whole idea called the placebo experiment, where the mind and the power it has on the life we live. That's why Dr. Ross says, he says, thinking needs to be gotten rid of, because if you have a stink way of thinking, you're going to end up living a stink life. So your neighbor, say, neighbor. Stinking thinking results in living a stink life. So let me give you the definition for placebo. The placebo effect is when a person's physical or mental health appears to improve after taking a placebo or dummy treatment. Placebo is Latin for I will please, and refers to a treatment that appears real, but it's designed to have no therapeutic benefit. And once I saw that, I went down another rabbit hole, because I'm looking at all the things that we are trying to fill our lives with. The social media becomes a placebo. The alcohol becomes a placebo. The marijuana becomes a placebo. The cocaine becomes a placebo. All of these things are trying to get me right, and only God. So I ran down a rabbit hole and looking at the effects that, because there's some doctors that talk about how social media has become such a big part of individuals' lives, even to the point where 70% of the Generation X, my kids' generation, that when they don't have their phones, they exhibit major stress indicators, to the point where they mark their value based on the likes that are received. So a heart, right, hear me with this, a heart that I receive from somebody that I don't know, gives me just as amount of satisfaction from receiving love from somebody I do know. And it's been, because they said the reality is that the mind has a hard time understanding the imagination compared to reality. That was another rabbit hole I ran down. And like I said, I wrestled with this idea of having to change my thinking. See, and that's why wise counsel is necessary. That's why mentors is necessary. That's why leadership is necessary. That's why big brothers, big sisters are necessary. That's why parents are necessary. One of the things I realized is that the gangs became the placebo for what they're lacking at home. All right, I'll behave. No, don't behave. God designed a system that works specific to the human experience. And the system that he designed has been one of the biggest systems that have been attacked, especially in the community of color, post-slavery. I'm talking about the system of the family, the father and mother in the house. and female came together and they became one. And I'll say this over and over again. Whenever the exception becomes a rule, it breeds chaos. And yes, there are some great women, single women that raise some great kids. But statistics say that the best institution designed is a two-parent household, male and female. And what has happened is that our minds have gone through this, I don't want to call it brainwashing, but that's what it feels like it is. And we're accepting all the things that are antithetical to what God has designed for us as human individuals. And we say, okay, it's successful. No, there's some success models in it. But overall, this model is not a successful model. And what we have done was our minds are having a hard time saying, okay, what is reality and what is our imagination? And why is this so necessary? Like Dr. Bernard said, I'm glad you asked. Because number one of the things we have to realize is the mind as the architect. The mind as the architect. We got to look at the mind as the architect. Proverbs chapter 4, verse 23 says, good news. And the Good News translation says, be careful how you think. Be careful how you think. Your life is shaped by your thoughts. Say to your neighbor, say, neighbor, you better be careful. And once again, why is this such a big thing? Thank you, Stacey. It's Generation Z. Somebody just texted me and told me it's Gen Z. And why is it so important? Because if your mind and the way you think becomes the architect for your life that you're building, then the first thing you got to ask is not why am I here, but what am I thinking? Why am I, Nikki? The first thing is not why am I going through what I'm going through, is what am I thinking? Because often we find ourselves trying to figure out where we are instead of saying, how did we get there? So the mind is the architect. See, our minds are architects shaping the blueprint of our lives. See, embrace the power to design thoughts that construct a foundation of positivity and purpose. I'll say that again. Embrace the power to design thoughts that construct a foundation of positivity and purpose. There goes my 4 minutes. Next week, we're going to be talking more about this. You know, Dr. Bernard, do I got more time, Dr. Bernard? Oh, he's not here, so we're going to keep on going. Number 2, thoughts for growth. Our growth stems from our thoughts. Say to your neighbor, say, neighbor. Our thoughts stem from our growth. Let's go to Romans chapter 12, verse 2, ESV. And you've heard this before, but I'm going to read it again. Do not be conformed by the world, but be transformed by the renewal of your mind, that by testing you may discern what is the will of God, what is good and acceptable and perfect. So just as a seed grows into a tree, our thoughts, when nurtured positively, can flourish into personal and spiritual growth. So cultivate the mental soil for a harvest of resilience, wisdom, and kindness. And I love this because I had to look up the word transformation, and I love this because I want to encourage you, saints, to understand that it's okay when people say you're not the same. I said it again. It's okay, right? So you can, if you're coming and saying you're a Christian and you're doing the same thing, then to me, you are having a problem being a Christian. He said because you'll be renewed. So renewal starts with your thinking. And remember, Dr. Bernard taught us, he said, you only think to the level you're exposed to. How do you renew your mind? Expose yourself to new information. See, transform means a change in character and or condition. So next time somebody says you've changed, thank you. I pray it was for the good. So number one, the reason why we got to be mindful of how we think is because the mind is the architect. Number two, thoughts for growth. Number three, overcoming challenges through the mindset. You are an overcomer. The starting point for you to be an overcomer starts in the mind. I was doing, martial arts class, and we were studying different styles, and one of the professors, he said, what is your greatest weapon? I'm like, man, it's like a trick question. Because if I say one thing, I don't want to sound soft, but if I say another thing, I don't want to sound, ignorant. He said, what is your greatest weapon whenever you're walking out there for defense? He said, your greatest weapon is always your mind. You find that in law enforcement, they'll ask you, they got the circle of escalation when there's issues, and they say, okay, what do you go through in order to escalate this to another level when it comes to self-defense or use of force? And they said the best officer that responds is when he has his mind at the center being a main tool that he uses in order to de-escalate a situation. The power of the mind. So the only limits that exist are the ones you place on yourself. I'll say it again. The only limits that exist are the ones that you place on yourself. Our minds can be a powerful ally in overcoming challenges. Develop a resilient mindset in the face of adversity. The mind's strength can be the beacon guiding us through the storm. I'll say it again. Develop a resilient mindset. For in the face of adversity, the mind's strength can be the beacon guiding us through the storm. So number one, the mind as the architect. Number two, thoughts for growth. Number three, overcoming challenges through thoughts. And part of some of the videos I was watching and listening to some of these doctors, psychiatrists, psychologists, they said that the reason why the mind can help you overcome a challenge is because, once again, if you focus on the negative, you'll only see the negative. If you focus on the positive, you'll only see the positive. And that's why we got to change our thinking. How about this? Number four, the mind's healing power. The mind's healing power. One of the things that Dr. always taught us, he said that what the mind can't handle, it'll impose on the body. What the mind can't handle, it'll impose on the body. But there's a vice versa to that. That the mind has the ability to help heal the body. There was a doctor, he was saying, there was a study with the doctor, and he said, well, one of the things I've noticed is that the more positive the mind is on an individual, the greater rate for them to come out of the surgery, out of the sickness, out of the disease is so much higher. He said it starts with the mind. He said even healing of the body starts with the mind. He said the success rate increases drastically when a person has a positive mindset. See, because a negative mindset is already embracing the negative. So they look for the end date. Oh, Lord, tell me how much time I have left. You think I'll be able to get out of this week? Lord, what am I going to do with my kids? See, Proverbs chapter 17, verse 22, it says, a cheerful heart is good medicine, but a crushed spirit dries up the bones. I'll say that again. A cheerful heart is good medicine, but a crushed spirit dries up the bones. See, recognize the mind's healing power, how optimism, gratitude, and joy can mend wounds. Let the mind be a source of strength, not only for yourself, but for those around you. And these are just 4 reasons I found on why we have to really go through the process and look at how we are thinking. How we are processing information, how we are allowing ourselves to perceive something. Even our perception starts with the way we think. Talking to an officer, he said when I go on a crime scene, I can ask like 10 individuals of what happened. I can end up getting 10 stories. He said, and what we notice is that the perception of what happened comes out of the way they think, but the way they think stems back to some trauma or some type of lifestyle that they live. So of course they end up seeing a big black man. And not because it's reality, but because of all the things that was attached to the way they think, they started perceiving something to not really happen. And often, that's the way we interact with God. So we have all this charm, we have all this lifestyle that we are living, we have all these things that come up with who we are as an individual. We start thinking a certain way, and then when we approach God, we start approaching God based on the way we think, when sometimes the way we think is not the right way, and therefore we don't get what we need from God. That's why I said, watch how you create a system in which God needs to respond to you. Stop putting God in this box where this is how he should operate. Stop putting God in a box on who he should use in order to bless you. Because the box that we create about God stems from the way we think. That's why I love it. He said, if you want real transformation, if you want to change in character and condition, first thing you ought to do is get an intimate relationship with this Bible. Because now you'll be able to start taking more information in about how I function, how I operate, and stop going through the assumptions that, Deacon such and such was over here, and this is what they taught me about God. Instead of saying, no, let me discover how the God of the Bible, how the creator of the universe, the I am that I am, the Yahweh, the beginning and the end, how he operates, how he functions. And then, because remember, attitude determines approach, and approach determines success or failure. And your thinking is the start of your attitude. So if I think God's going to say no, why should I go to him? If I think that God's going to say yes, then I'll go to him. Then I'll walk in boldness. And this is what Paul was going through talking to the church of Philippi, the Philippian church, and he was going through a conversation. He's having a conversation, and he gets this spot in Philippians chapter 4, verse 8, and this is the Message Bible. And I love how he starts, he says, summing it all up. So therefore, all the stuff that I talked about in the beginning chapters of Philippians, this is how I'm going to sum it up in this verse. He says, we talked about joy, we talked about rejoicing, we talked about living a certain lifestyle, we talked about all of this stuff. He said, but look, if I have to sum up this book, he says, summing everything I talked about, especially in chapter 4, he said, it goes like this. He said, let me sum it up for you. I'd say you'll do best by filling your mind. By what? By what? So you will do best by filling your mind and meditating. So first you got to fill your mind and then you meditate. And what happens is that's the process that we all go through. We end up allowing things to fill our mind and then we find ourselves meditating on it. That's why they said, before you go to bed, watch what you watch. Be mindful of what you watch. Be mindful of the last hour that you are allowing yourself to entertain all these thoughts, because during sleep time, you go into a subconscious realm. That's when somebody says, oh, I had a dream. Lord, I had a dream about, this was going to happen. I saw the apocalypse and this and that, and the missiles was going, and we need to pray right now. Let me ask you a question. What did you watch before you go to bed? And they start explaining what they watched. I'm like, no, you just have remnants of all the stuff that you were going through when you were watching what you were watching. So he says, so first we end up watching, and if we allow it to go to another level, we start meditating on it. We allow certain things to go through our ears, and we start meditating on it. That's why I tell you, like my mother made sure that she spoke to us a certain way, because she knows that the power of the words of a mother sinks so deep that it affects us subconsciously. So when my mother is talking, she says, no, Jamaal, you can do whatever you put your mind to. That became my mantra. And because my mother said it, this is what I would meditate on. When I was getting prepared to do something, I would meditate. Mommy said, I can do whatever I put my mind to. When it came to sports, I can do whatever I put my mind to. When it came to ministry, I can do whatever I put my mind to. When it came to fathering, I can do whatever I put my mind to. Because the reality is, there's certain things we can never get ready for. We can't get ready for something that we never experienced.
Thank you for listening to Senior Pastor Jamaal Bernard of Christian Cultural Center. Download the podcast on Apple Podcasts or Spotify and visit cccinfo.church for more. We'd love to see you in person. Join us Sundays at 10 a.m. at our Brooklyn or Long Island campuses.